Hi guys, I'm Lisa. This is Small Kids Big God, and today we're going to talk about remembering what God has done for us and sharing it with future generations. In today's devotional for moms, I'm going to talk about how we can remember what God has done for us and the answered prayers, and it goes really well with this meaningful Christmas gift idea that I'm going to share with you. So first, let me share with you this idea that I have for a meaningful Christmas gift. I always like to give things that somehow mean more than just like commercialism or something that somebody wants. I want to get people what they want, but I also want to get them something that seems to have some kind of like deeper meaning or like propels people spiritually. At least that's what I like to give them, some kind of good book or something like that to add to their Christmas gift. So what I did last year was I got these containers. I picked jars. I'll show you the one that we have. This is a jar that we got from Hobby Lobby, and I like the glittery ones. I got different ones for different people. Some were opaque and you couldn't see through, just depending on the style of the people that I was buying for. And then I gave them an empty jar, and some of them I had bought like a fancy label and put 2018 on it, the year. And then I gave them a pack of paper to go with it, like little slips of paper. And then I like tied it all together and put a note on it. And the note explained that our family was going to have one of these jars for the next year. And in it, we were going to use the slips of paper to record answered prayers that God would do for us in the next year. And I invited them to join in this tradition with us and to take their jar home and put it in a prominent place and then write on the slips of paper the answered prayers that God had for them over the year. And so I bought one for ourselves too in our family, and we have been doing this past year, and it's been really cool to do and just have a place to put these reminders of what God has done for us this past year. And then on New Year's Eve, we're going to take out all the slips of paper and read through them and be reminded of how God has been faithful to us for this whole year. And I think that'll be just a perfect way to wrap up 2018 and go into 2019 remembering the faithfulness of God. So it's a really simple gift idea, but the people who we got it for appreciated it and did use it. So I got this cute jar from Hobby Lobby and the paper too, but you could do any kind of container that you want and any kind of little slips of paper. I think just the note that you put with it, kind of explaining what to do, is probably the most important thing. So this is it's meaningful and it's important because God tells us to remember what He's done. And as you know, it's so easy when God answers a prayer to just say, oh, thank you, God, thank you, and then forget and then move on to the next thing that we're praying for, or just, we kind of get past that situation, and so we don't remember it anymore. And I know there are things that God has done for us that I've completely forgotten about. I try to record and remember the big things, but the smaller things are important too. And this is kind of a cool way to share with our kids what has happened over the year, because some of these things they put in there and they know about, but some of them they don't know about. Some of them I probably forgot already. And we'll get to remember that together at the end of the year. And that is something that God desires for us. He wants us to remember what He's done and to talk about it and to share. Like the book of Joshua has a great example of this. When the Israelites cross over with Joshua, they cross the Jordan River, and the Lord stops up the water so they can all go through the Jordan River on dry land. And then the first thing He has them do in Joshua 4, like as soon as the entire nation was on the other side, He had them collect the 12 big stones that were going to be the Ebenezer stones. So when their children saw them, they would say, why are these stones here? And the people would remember and explain to their children what God had done, because that's one of our jobs as parents, is to remind our children of what God has done, like what God has done in the past before us, what God has done in our lives and their lives, and therefore they can carry on this tradition of knowing God is faithful, and they don't have to start from scratch because we've experienced God and His character and we know it to be true. So it's so important to share that with our kids. So using one of these jars is a great way to remember that and include our kids in that. I think there's definitely other ways you can do it too. I was thinking about ways that we do it in our family. I know when we've had really big answers to prayer, we can kind of commemorate those differently. And I know some people have cool ideas of how they can commemorate like a really big event or answer to prayer in their life. One example in our family is one of our sons had a brain tumor and hydrocephalus when he was really little. And God healed him from that miraculously. And it's just been one of the biggest answers to prayer ever in our lives. And that's something that we never want to forget. We want all our kids to know that story and to remember that story. So what we do in our family is on the anniversary date of his surgery, every July, we remember that date and we have like a special treat and we look at the pictures from that time. We tell the story again so that our kids know what happened and we never forget. And hopefully we glorify God in that. And then our kids can take that as a part of their story, even though they were very young at the time, or some of our littlest kids weren't even born yet. That's part of their story that they can go on saying God was faithful to our family then and will continue to be in the future. Another example I recently thought about was with my daughter. We named her for a particular reason, and she's almost 5 now. And I guess we haven't taught her enough that she knew the meaning of her name, because we recently went over that with her again and kind of explained to her the importance of her name. And you could just tell she was like swelling up with joy or pride or the value of knowing that there is meaning to her name and that there's blessing from that. After we had our first 2 kids, we had a physical issue where I wasn't sure we would be able to conceive again. We weren't sure if or when we'd be able to have another child, but we really wanted one. And so I would pray every day. I would pray from 1 Samuel the way that Hannah did, praying for Samuel. And I would pray from those passages where Hannah was praying each day, and we figured if we ever did have another kid, we would name him Samuel, the way Hannah did. And it turns out that my daughter wasn't a Samuel, she is a Samantha. And we were already calling the baby Sam before we knew that she was a girl, and Samantha was just the perfect name for her. And so even though it's not a biblical name, it has such meaning and is rooted in God's blessing, God's answer to prayer, God's faithfulness. And the way that we can convey that to my daughter is just by telling her the story again and again until she can grasp it as her own and never forgets where she comes from and the faithfulness of God that was the beginning of her life. If you have ways that your family remembers the faithfulness of God and like special answers to prayer in your family, I would love to hear in the comments below. And if you're going to use this idea for your Christmas gifts this year, I hope you do, and I hope you share it with me in the comments. Thanks for watching today, and I will see you next time.